Hello, this is Mark Holmes, the editorial director of Via Satellite. And yes, again, we're going to be celebrating one of our 10 hottest companies in satellite. This is a feature that we have in Via Satellite that's proved super popular over the last 3 years, where we sort of name companies, some well-known, some not so well-known, and why we think they're the hottest companies in satellite. Now, the company we're talking today is definitely a hot company in satellite right now, Virgin Orbit, and I'm delighted to be joined today for a Thursday morning conversation with Dan Hart of Virgin Orbit. So Dan, welcome to the Thursday morning conversation.
Well, it's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great. How has life been for you over the last sort of 18 months? I mean, we've all been, operating in the middle of a pandemic, trying to get Virgin Orbit. We all know launching satellites is no easy task. How has it been for you?
Well, it's been, surreal for us as it's been for everybody. Everybody has their story. Ours has to be, going to first launch in the face of a pandemic, just through a whole dimension of not only the work to get to launch last year, but figuring out a new way to work while we went to launch. In the midst of it, we made the decision to divert part of the factory to make ventilators, and so we designed and built our own ventilator. We went to launch, and then we quickly turned around and launched again early this year. And 2021 has been so far a shining star of things to come. We had a brilliant launch success in January, on January 17th. And we had another fantastic mission last Wednesday. So we're up and running, ramping up, and really so happy to be seeing people in 3D.
I saw that. I mean, firstly, a great name for a mission, Tubular Bells. As someone that listened to that CD a good few years ago, it sort of took me back a little bit. Again, congratulations. How are you when an actual launch is sort of taking place? What's sort of the energy like, and how are you sort of feeling and watching it and being part of that whole experience?
Well, I think the lead up to a launch, especially early launches for a new system, are somewhat unique. The camaraderie is there. You're pulling together, but you're all in an intense fishbowl together. And so the focus is unreal. And you drive through that intensity together. And it's miraculous when you see the process take place. The team knows exactly what to do, the professionalism, and it just makes you smile. And then when you have success at the end, it's an incredible feeling, because you see this group of awesome people who have put their ideas, innovation, long hours, blood, sweat into a system. They see it operate as it should. And the grin on these tired faces is spectacular.
It really is quite. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to go to 2 or 3 launches myself, and they are just the most amazing, intense experiences. And I mean, I speak of it, covering it as an editor, and it was intense, watching it from an outside perspective, I guess. When you're actually involved in a launch and, all that sort of, I don't know, nervous energy and, I can only imagine what the emotions are like
Well, I think in aerospace, it's probably the closest thing to a spiritual experience. And then most importantly, you have your customers there, and they put their faith and trust in you. And they've worked for years and years on their project and their satellite and the build and their problems. And now you have their baby and you're taking it up to space. And that relationship and that feeling that you share with them when their satellite goes into orbit is just incredible. So we look forward to doing a lot of that in the future.
So tell me about the future now. I mean, this year's already been a landmark year. 2 amazing sort of launch events. If we're having this conversation this time next year, where would you where would you hope to position Virgin Orbit?
Well, I mean, by this time next year, we will be in a rhythm of launching. We'll be launching again in the fall. We'll start doubling our rhythm next year. Our objective is 6 launches next year. We also will be starting to launch internationally, and we're working both with Guam and as well as with Cornwall. Another amazing experience we had this past month was we were invited to attend the G7 summit and bring a full-scale model or full-scale rocket to the G7. We met for 30 minutes with the Prime Minister of the UK, also with the Prime Minister of Australia, because there was such a thirst for launch across, in these countries and in other countries. And so, that's another wedge of our activity is getting our regular pace and then starting to diversify launch across the globe.
So how were those conversations? I mean, even for someone, a seasoned executive like yourself, Dan, were they somewhat surreal to be somewhere like Cornwall talking with prime ministers about launching rockets? I mean, that's not an everyday activity, I guess, even for someone like you.
It's not part of our usual routine by far. I'll say, first of all, Cornwall is just a beautiful place. But we have been working with Cornwall and the UK Space Agency as well as the RAF for some time now. Matter of fact, we have an RAF pilot. We have one loaned to us who actually flew on this last mission. But we've been working with them for a while. I had expected that when Prime Minister Johnson came through, we would get him for 15 seconds and a photo op. He stayed for 30 minutes, and we pulled up a detailed deck that we hadn't even planned to brief. So it was a very focused discussion. The Prime Minister is very aware of the space economy, the issues associated with space, and we also touched on the national security aspects of space. So really far-reaching discussion. He made a video right after talking about Cornwall. And so we're very excited about that opportunity, as well as our agreement with OIDA in Japan, Brazil, and our discussions with Australia and other countries. I mean, there are almost 80 space agencies across the world. There are about 10 of them that can launch.
Anything out of those discussions with the Prime Minister that you can share with us? I mean, you said you got a lot longer than the 15 seconds that you thought you might get.
Well, I mean, the discussion covered everything from how do we grow the space economy in the UK, and work across with our satellite partners, government agencies, that combination of commercial, civil space, and national security space working together, which is essentially what worked in the United States, and replicating that in the UK. We also touched on other issues like the debris and debris management, and the need for a real far-reaching policies in that area. So it was a great discussion. A lot of real interest, certainly, in bringing launch to Cornwall.
Did that surprise you in any way? I know that the UK has spoken a lot about developing the space economy, and it's been a big goal for the industry over the last few years. But nevertheless, when you're actually at the G7 summit talking about these things, did it come as almost a surprise that just how keen people are to do this and actually make this a reality? Because we've been talking about it for many years, but now it feels like it's much more becoming real, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, we have been part of the growth swell of discussions, and so for most of the community, it wasn't a surprise. It was just great to be there and share what's going on in space. It was a surprise, a very welcome surprise, to see how much awareness there is at very high levels of government. So that was really, really interesting.
Okay. Had you heard of Cornwall before you started to look to develop it as a place to launch rockets? I'm sort of curious. Somewhere I've been on holiday, and it's a beautiful place in the southwest of the UK. But I'm sort of wondering how well known it is for someone like yourself.
Only in some old movies and some more recent TV shows. Doc Martin, for instance, takes place there. So my wife tells me about Cornwall frequently.
So have you watched any episodes of Doc Martin?
I have. It's a good show.
Excellent. We'll get on to some TV questions a little bit, because we like to have some fun with these Thursday morning conversations. But the launch market is fascinating right now. I mean, it wasn't that long. I was talking with someone the other day. It didn't seem that long ago then, when I was talking about the launch market, that we were talking about Arianespace, the Proton, and maybe SpaceX making an impact in this market in future years. And it sounds like that was decades ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. I mean, for someone that's involved in this market, that's competing for business in this market, how do you see sort of the dynamics now? I mean, it's such a fascinating part of the overall market. I'm just sort of curious how you see it all sort of shaking out now.
Well, I mean, I was part of the same sort of evolution in thinking. I mean, what's happened over the last few years is the realization of what is possible has reawakened throughout the community, throughout the public, of what space can do and what we can do in space. I mean, I have an old New York Times edition from the day after we landed on the moon, and it talks about what is going to happen. And I refer to it every once in a while, and it's both happy and sad when I do, because a lot of obviously things didn't quite unfold. But so there's a reawakening happening now of what we can do, and we're doing it. I mean, there are ideas popping all over the industry, and there's a lot of capital coming in, which is enabling those. So that's incredibly exciting. It's really cool to be in the midst of all that. Now, the trick as we go forward is to take those ideas and innovations and concepts, those drawings, artistic renderings, and turn some of those into material capabilities that serve humanity. That's the hard part. So it's a messy part, so you're going to see a lot of that unfold, and there's going to be people who are successful, and other ideas will catch elsewhere and maybe be successful in other ways. I feel tremendously privileged to be in a company supported by Virgin, with real vision, with a team of incredible talent that's now span that chasm between an idea and an operation.
It really is an amazing system as well. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. Again, I go back, but launching rockets was a simple process, because I'd probably offend half of the launch community by saying that. But but we're seeing sort of whether it's locations, different ways of launching, and different types of technologies. It's really sort of the innovation has accelerated hugely over the last few years. I mean, it's still. I mean, I noticed in the press release you sort of said, we made it look easy, but it really isn't, and that really is what the launch market is about at the end of the day. I mean, we almost take it. I wouldn't say we take it for granted, but it's a very difficult thing to do, launch satellites, and it's for us that are involved in the industry. It's one of the most challenging aspects of our industry is to keep launching satellites. And you spoke about getting a rhythm, a momentum, but to keep doing it over and over again, not making mistakes, and to keep and to get that reliability, the reliability for your customers. It's really. I mean, I commend you and all launch providers that are looking to do that and are able to do that.
Well, I mean, there's a precision, there's a discipline, and it's got to be core And at the same time, you need innovation to carry through at every phase, because that is what will allow you to be a disruptive element in the market. And we have a new generation coming into the business, and that's the other really exciting aspect. I mean, and I shouldn't say we've had a new generation, and now some of them have been with it for 5 or 10 years, and then there are others just coming in. And that is incredible, because you see the turnover taking place. You see people really learning the business and leading the business.
I mean, talk a little bit about that sort of next generation, because it didn't seem that long ago where the space industry wasn't the hippest industry for young people to work in. Do you see like a big change in that now, just from a Virgin perspective?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we certainly, this idea of the art of the possible, and what can we do, and making a mark and affecting things globally are very, very tantalizing for people coming out of school. You marry that with the Virgin brand and the sort of vision and philosophy that Richard Branson kind of flows through all his companies, and we have a set of rock stars on our team. That said, launch is a hard business, as you mentioned before. And so it's, as you come into launch, I mean, people are learning, here's where the sparks happen, the innovation and the ideas. Here's where we lock down, drive forward, and go to launch. And there are, and then here's where we take it on the other side and invent the next product. And I think, I see people learning that whole flow, and it's very, very exciting, and it's great to see them thriving.
What is it that you most enjoy about the job? What is if you could sort of narrow it down to one thing, what would you say is being the CEO of Virgin Orbit? What's the thing that you most enjoy about it?
I think there's two things. One is an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than yourself, and I think that's why most of us get into this business. And be able to open up space for incredible ideas and innovation, and see it affect the world. In a past life, I was building GPS satellites. Whenever I see somebody go to their smartphone, I know they're probably talking to one of my satellites. The other part is really the team, and seeing people dig down deep, move through a business that's not the easiest, take, career risk, and sometimes, personal career risk, and buckle in and succeed, and see them feel the gratification of that, the potential of that, and then lean forward to the next. See the team come together. There is nothing like that.
No, it's fascinating, and I have to ask you, because I mean, Sir Richard is your boss. I had the pleasure of interviewing him a couple of years ago, and I know he's sort of making headlines. Just your whole thoughts on this whole space tourism, and science. The age of science fiction seems to be here now. It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. And Richard is it's great to be working, in an organization where the founder calls you up once a month or so and asks you, "I've heard about this. Is it possible?" And Richard is always looking for, how do we strive forward? And he does so in a way where he tries to put himself, near the front line, or in the front line, and you can see that he's doing that in space tourism. Hopefully next week, he was with us, at the flight line as we disconnected the rocket last Wednesday. Richard is a guy who can connect with the people around him, and cares a lot, so much for the people who work for him. It's great to work for somebody who wants to be in the middle.
So were you tempted, or are you tempted to follow Sir Richard's footsteps into space?
You know, I'm thinking about that. Usually, in the past, long ago, I actually had my applications in to the astronaut corps, and so I'm noodling on that. I may just take that step.
Excellent. So we should watch this space then, should we?
There's a lot of, I mean, there's a ton of folks who want to take that ride. It's a different perspective on frankly the world we live in.
And without doubt, I think we're all sort of super excited for many reasons. Again, it's something that, I know we started talking about it a lot in the industry over the last few years, but I always felt it was many, many years away, and now it's actually here. And I thought some of the early forecasts were a bit optimistic, but we're here, 2021. We're doing it. It's quite incredible. Now, these Thursday morning conversations, we always like to end with like one or two like fun questions. We spoke about the mission being tubular bells. I noticed there's a guitar in the background as I sort of talked to you today. So, what kind of music do you like? I know with Richard, Virgin Music, that's a very big theme of his career. What kind of music do you like to listen to when you're not thinking about launching rockets?
Well, let's see. That's a great, I do have a wide variety. I'm probably at the core, I'm probably a classic rock junkie. But I do like to go into jazz and blues as well. And if I on a nice morning, I'll turn on the little Vivaldi and kind of get into that or related. So I'm pretty diverse. But when I grab the guitar behind me, it's typically either the blues or classic rock.
Okay, so one or two classic rock tunes. What sort of tunes get you going in the morning? Give us one or two classic rock tunes to listen to.
Boy. Well, I mean, I'll go way back into something like Johnny B. Good, but then, Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen. I'll go back a little further, more to the folk side of Bob Dylan. But then Jackson Browne, Tom Petty, the Stones, onward and onward. Lots of different stuff. Fantastic.
And just finally on the music, best gig you've been to. If there's one concert you look back on and think, wow, that was almost as good as launching a rocket, which one would you choose?
Well, gosh, I would have to go back. Well, first of all, I've been to Cebu a few times down in San Diego, and the variety is just fantastic. But I have to go back to probably, I think it was the early 80s or so when I went to a concert and Bruce Springsteen and Jackson Browne played some together, and that was probably at the high point in my concert going. By the way, I'm personally, there's a guitar behind me. I'm a drummer by trade, though. The guitar is just something I beat on.
Okay, and favorite Bruce Springsteen song?
Well, Born to Run, Jungle Land. I go back a little bit. Jersey Girl, all those, and then some.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a really great way to end the conversation. Dan, it's been absolutely fascinating. One of the things I was interested about today was a lot of times when I do these Thursday morning conversations, it's people I've spoken with before who I know quite well. So it was nice for me to talk to somebody new for me today. So I'm really pleased that we were able to do this and you had time in your schedule to talk to us. I'd like to congratulate all of you and your team at Virgin Orbit for being one of Via Satellite's 10 hottest companies in satellite. It's really well deserved, and it's a company that we love to report on, and we think is a company that's really shaking up our sector. As you know, I'm from the UK, so it's great. If someone had told me a few years ago about launching satellites from Cornwall, I would have probably laughed a little bit, thinking that's never going to happen. So it's a really great story. So I just want to sort of pass on all of the editorial teams, congratulations. I wish you all the best for the second half of the year, and I hope you have some more great launches, and look forward to hopefully seeing you soon in person as well. So thanks once again.
Well, thank you. We're honored to be counted as one of the top 10 companies. It's great talking to you, and look forward to getting together in 3 dimensions, either over there or down here walking through the factory.
If you want to invite me to Cornwall, summer Cornwall launch, I'm there. I'm definitely there. So
right on.
I look forward to it. Well, Dan, absolute pleasure, and we'll look forward to catching up soon.
Enjoyed it. Take care.